Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I wanted to do a final exam review so you can start studying earlier. That's the point of not having a lecture during this week. I want you to really dig into the textbook, study the material, and make sure you know the chapters that we've given an overview for this course. The test is going to consist of 40 to 45 questions. I have a few that I want to add, but from that perspective, some of them will be multiple choice, short answer, true or false, and essay. So there will be some essay questions in this exam. Of course, you'll have 2 hours to complete the exam, and it will be on Lockdown Browser. The exam will be on these chapters: Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 6, Chapter 7, Chapter 8, Chapter 9, and Chapter 10. So the exam will consist of only questions from those chapters, so you'll know what to study for. Here's a quick study guide just so you keep up from the perspective of knowing what to concentrate on. Know about patient rights and what is protected from regards to patient rights, especially in a healthcare setting. What's protected? There's some laws that we talked about, like the Good Samaritan law and such. That doesn't really protect patients, but know what rights protect patients that are out there. All right, know about relationships and responsible relationships and legally holding someone to what kind of standard. So what standard of care, what would a reasonable person do in a certain situation? We've talked about that in Chapter 1. What is fee for service? The difference between value-based care and fee-for-service payments. Know about how you should communicate with patients, especially those who might need an interpreter or something from that nature. Um, this question is kind of confusing. It talks about what is a healthcare professional required to do, um, and if a patient can understand what a healthcare provider is conveying, right, then we should speak to them directly. So that's a little bit of information about that question, but I saw it with a little bit of confusion, so I wanted to highlight that. All right, know about making medical decisions and what the requirement is for practices to make medical decisions based on standard of care. What is the EEOC? Make sure you know what the EEOC is. Know about a job description. What is a job description and what should it entail? It's kind of a random question that we had in one of the chapters. All right, know about what the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor charge is. Know about illegal discrimination. What is illegal discrimination? Know about licensed versus unlicensed personnel. Licensed versus unlicensed. What about medical malpractice? What is that? And who's the plaintiff versus defendant in those situations? Know about Congress, so the different sections of Congress, the Senate, right, and the House of Representatives. What is a disposition? Know what a disposition is? All right, know about the term arbitration and mediation. What are those? What is a testimony? When someone gives testimony in a court setting, what is that? A couple of true or false questions about HIPAA. Make sure you know what HIPAA is. All right, some short answer questions about what reasonable care is, standard of care. Some true or false questions about how healthcare professionals should act in a healthcare setting. What about nonverbal communication? How does that convey to patients, nonverbal communication? More questions about HIPAA. HIPAA is very, very important, right? Know about the HIPAA privacy and security rules. What are the difference between the HIPAA privacy and security rules? Random question, but when was HIPAA signed? When was HIPAA signed? And just a hint, it's at the same time critical access hospital status was initiated. When was HIPAA signed in the law? All right, how do we disclose information to patients? And are they able to disclose information in every setting? Can a healthcare provider do that? Of course, the answer is no, but that should be reviewed. What is autonomy? Know what autonomy is? Know about the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act? It's something we've talked about, very minimal, but make sure you know what that is because there's a random question in this data set. All right. Know about research. What is community-based research? It's something that was discussed in one of the chapters, but that's just one question in there. And that is about it. So that's the majority of an overview. There will be some more questions from Chapter 7 and Chapter 8 that I didn't give much of an overview on, so make sure you highlight that in your studying. But from that perspective, the short answers and the essay questions will be worth more points. So your essays, I'm going to have questions about HIPAA. I'm going to have questions about standard of care, things that are really general, and I'm really looking for you to explain it, not just straight from the textbook, but based on the fact that you've really thought about the situation that I'll be describing in the question. So if you get that right, and you really do decent in your multiple choice, you're going to have a really good grade on this final exam. It's not meant to be challenging, but if you study, you're going to do a good job. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.